The Tudor Ranger, released in 2022. Is it a really boring watch from Tudor, or is it something truly special that people are really missing out on? Which one is it? That's what we're going to dive into in today's video. So today's video is sponsored by Kibble Watches, of course. We sponsor our own video, yes. So it is the place to go to buy and sell your watch, regardless of brand, budget, or requirements here in the UK. So if you have a watch you want to sell, get in contact. If you want to see some amazing watches at incredible prices, head on over to kibblewatches.co.uk today. So, it's my new watch alert. Finally, I am sharing what watch I've been teasing for over a month. Yes, you heard that right, over a month. I had decided that I'd share the watch once my daughter was born. Isla was born on the 20th of August at 10:27 p.m. An absolutely crazy, whole drawn out labour for my poor wife and a real endeavour from the start to the end. But bless her, she is doing so well. Isla is doing amazing, and what a incredible experience to live through. I mean, you know, having a daughter, I knew it would have an impact, but never to this point. And that's what this watch is to represent. Both me and my wife had decided we wanted to buy a watch to represent the birth of our daughter. We wanted it to be in the year of 2022. We didn't care about whether it was the same month or whatever it may be. We just knew we wanted a watch and we wanted to purchase it in 2022, and we wanted to buy it new. That was kind of the thing. We were looking originally at vintage and then sort of deciding something special, but we're going to leave that for down the road for another momentous sort of occasion. Whereas for this one, we decided we both loved the Tudor Ranger. Now, I've owned this watch for a month, and I think I may be one of the few people on YouTube doing a review who actually owns the watch and has owned it for a month. I think most people have spoken about it after seeing it in, you know, a shop window, or have been to Tudor and had the sort of privilege of seeing it there. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's some absolutely incredible reviews out there that I highly recommend you go and watch. But this may be something a bit different if you are considering buying the watch, to have someone who actually owns the watch, has worn the watch, and has experienced the watch to discuss it. And that is what we're going to do today. So let's get all the boring specs out of the way first, the necessities. This is the 79950 reference. That is what they've called it. It is 39mm by 48mm lug to lug. I've measured it around 12.5mm thick and 20mm lug, so nice endless options on the lug length. Inside is the Tudor caliber MT5402, which features 70 hours of power reserve and 28,800 beats per hour, as you'd expect. And with that power reserve, it is an incredible sort of achievement to be able to do that, and it's going to be something we talk about later on in the pro section as well. The watch has 100 meters water resistant, perfect for everyday use, and it features their new T-Fit clasp, which is a incredible feature that Tudor are slowly bringing to the table across their entire lineup, and I couldn't be happier about it. I think the clasps on the watches before was the only thing that really let them down, whereas they have rectified this, and again we'll be talking more on that in a little bit. In terms of price here in the UK, as of the time we're recording this video, £2,420 at retail on the bracelet, or £2,170 on either of the strap choices. They have a really amazing hybrid strap, which I am looking to pick up at some points in the future to swap out from the bracelet from time to time, and also a NATO strap, which I'm personally not a fan of, but I can see the appeal. So at that kind of price, it puts it under £2,500 on a bracelet for a in-house movement, 70-hour power reserve, and, you know, a field watch of this design. I think it's an incredible value, and again we'll talk more on that in a little bit. Now, the reason they released this watch is it was to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the Greenland expedition, and as Tudor themselves put it, they are celebrating the spirit of the daring adventure. And the reason that's an important distinction is because there was no Tudor Ranger that was worn on this expedition. The sort of correlation here is very loose, and I think Tudor, personally, I think Tudor are just jumping on the ability to have an incredible expedition, which they did, and the watch that was worn was or used was a Tudor Oyster Prince, Why they didn't re-release that watch, I don't know, and why they have sort of paired it together with the Ranger, I also don't know. They've given a long reason on their website, and you may have heard other people mention or reiterate that point. I think it's a void point. I think they've just taken this incredible expedition, incredible history, which it is, and this new watch release and gone, let's merge them both together to hopefully create a little bit of hype. Could be wrong on that, but that's my opinion of their reasoning for the Expedition 70th anniversary. Now, as a lot of you may know, there was a Tudor Ranger before this watch. It featured an ETA 2824 movement. It was much bigger at 41 millimeters. It had a straight end bracelet, and luckily enough, we actually have one in stock at Kibble Watches at the moment, unworn with the case sticker still on and everything with it. So we're going to throw over some clips of the two side by side. You can see they are very similar. The main difference is being a full red second hand. You've got obviously the smiley text down at 12 o'clock and the size difference. Other than that, they are essentially the same watch. They're both fully brushed with a slight polished bevel on the bezel, the bezel itself. Sorry, I'm not getting my words out. But in general, they're pretty much the same. Now, the Tudor Ranger 41mm didn't do very well at retail. The reason being, I personally think it's down to the size. From working retail with Tudor at the time when this watch was available, I often had people saying the size was too big, or the straight end of the bracelet was a bit harsh, or the strap option wasn't very good. There was multiple reasons people didn't like the watch, and it didn't sell too well, and that's what makes it such a good purchase pre-owned if you're after this kind of thing. However, the latest one, I think they've fixed all of those issues, if you can call them that, and more, bringing it down to 39 millimeters, improving it with this bracelet. Removing the full red second hand, I think it looks far superior with just the tip of the second hand being red. I also think the dimensions of the dial all being brought in really draw your eyes in the correct way, whereas there feels like a lot of empty space, in my opinion, on the 41. And interestingly enough, let's move on to some of the cons of the watch, or the cons that people are saying are cons, and we'll discuss whether they are or not. A lot of people are saying this watch is boring. You know, the dial is very simple, the whole watch design is very simple, it's boring, as a few people have said. I personally disagree. I think it is simple, but I don't think simplicity equals boring. I think this watch is very utilitarian in terms of its design and use, and it fits that box so well. It's a field watch. It's intended to be a field watch. It's intended to be a robust watch that can be used in any scenario, any circumstance, and just do its job. And I think the design really shows that. This watch has no identity issues. You know, you see some of the other watches from Tudor or other brands in general, and it can be a bit confusing as to what that watch is. As a lot of you know, I used to own a Black Bay 36. I loved the watch. I thought it was amazing. However, I did feel like it had identity issues. What I mean by this is you had the dial of a dive watch. You had the dial and handset of a dive watch, yet everything else was nothing like a dive watch. You had 36mm, yes, you had a screw down crown, but you had no bezel, and the whole thing felt like a bit of a mishmash. It wanted to be basically a simple Oyster Perpetual whilst also incorporating dive features. I think, personally, that is an identity crisis of the watch. This Tudor Ranger, in my opinion, does not have that identity crisis. You look at it and you know what it is, and you know what its form is, and you know what its function is going to be. And it ticks all those boxes for me personally. So, being boring? I don't think so. Being simple? Sure, but in the right way. Now, the only other con I have, and you probably get into the point here, that I actually really love this watch and I don't think there's a lot wrong with it. The only other con I have isn't with the watch itself. It's actually that it's with Tudor, and I've had this gripe with Tudor for a very long time. They used to provide a spare strap with every purchase, and it was always such a cool feature. It was one of the things that I think people really appreciated, especially in the world of today where everything is getting less and everything is getting more expensive. I don't see the harm in Tudor just throwing in a NATO strap or a more affordable version of a strap that is free with the watches. Maybe not to the same quality of the strap that you can purchase this watch on, because maybe that is a far superior strap, sure, but there was more affordable NATO straps that they used to provide with the watches. I feel like they should do this again. Would it affect my purchasing decision? Absolutely not, because I hate NATO straps in the first place, but I like the idea that the brands care about their consumers and are providing extra value where they can. Now let's get on to the pros. The reason I bought this watch, the reason my wife loves this watch, and the reason we're both going to enjoy this watch for the rest of our lives and one day pass over to Isla when she's old enough to appreciate it. It's built like a tank. This watch during the entire pregnancy was the perfect watch. I could pick it up, put it on wrist, not worry about it. It is running incredibly well thanks to the MT5402 movement with the 70-hour power reserve. If maybe we were at home for a day or two and the watch wasn't being worn because we were just busy doing other things and we had to go to the hospital, the watch went straight on the wrist, it was still running and it was still on time perfectly. I'd say it's probably gaining or losing about a second a day to the point where it's not noticeable at all. So you've got that aspect. And then in terms of being built like a tank, the whole thing being brushed, it just absorbs the scratches in a lovely way. And I've always found this with brushed watches. I feel like they complement scratches, whereas a full polished watch or polished center links, it can be quite glaring and obvious when you do finally get some wear into your watch, as you should do. You should be wearing your watches. Whereas this seems to embrace it. And again, that subtle polished bevel on the bezel is beautiful, and again it just really adds that slight nuance to the design, the slight pop without it being too loud, and I think that works so well. And again, to emphasize on the being built like a tank, we have a 2-week-old baby. There is puke everywhere. It is just part of it. This watch, it just gets all kinds of stuff on it. Under the tap it goes, in the shower, it doesn't matter. This watch cleans up, I haven't got to worry about it. If she decides to throw it across the room one day or gets hold of it, again, I don't feel like I have to worry about that. And that is a big plus for me. Again, you'll have to excuse the noise, but again, the reason of this watch purchase was to celebrate the birth of our daughter. And I wanted it to be practical in that sense as well. If we go on holiday or whatever it may be in the future, hopefully she'll have memories of me wearing this watch. And that's why I want to attach to this watch. And a watch like this, you can wear it anywhere, you can go anywhere, and you can do anything with. I don't feel like I have to worry about wearing this in London, which is a very real factor I have to take into account when looking to buy a new watch. And as should all of you, I think it's a very real scenario now that we all have to pay attention to. Sure, this watch kind of looks like an Explorer from Rolex, but again, I still don't feel like that is going to be getting your arm chopped off level, even if you did have the Explorer. So I won't worry about it too much. The design being very similar to the Explorer, I think, isn't a bad thing because it has its own true history and heritage. So on that note, there is the Tudor Ranger that was 34mm from back in the day. That is where this watch gets its design cues, but bumped up to 39mm. I think that size is perfect for the watch. I think it wears perfectly well, and I don't think it needs to be smaller. The new release of the Explorer in 36 and the discontinuation of the 39 makes this watch make more sense in the lineup of Tudor and Rolex. As a lot of you know, they're sister brands, so they obviously communicate and discuss with each other when they are going to release watches. I don't think it's a coincidence that the 39mm Explorer was discontinued, the 36 was bought out, and all of a sudden, only a year or two later, the 39mm Tudor Ranger comes out at the price point it is. I think it's to fill a gap. And another big pro to this watch is the bracelet. The bracelet is built, again, just like the watch, incredibly well. You've got screw links. You've got the new T-Fit clasp, which allows for glide adjustments of around 8mm, I believe it is, on the fly. Why aren't more brands doing this? I think it makes complete sense rather than having to adjust with one of these tools that I actually always have at the side of the desk, because that's how many watches still require this, where you have to poke in and get the spring bar to move up and down. It just allows for a more comfortable fit. Now, if only I had smaller wrists, I would be able to wear this watch and then move the glide up and allow my wife to wear the watch. Unfortunately, my wrist is a bit too big for that, so links do have to come out. But the point is, you've got options there. If you are someone who fluctuates a lot during the winter and the summer, no longer do you have to worry about having the links always accessible, because you know when summer comes, you're going to have to pop in with that link, get it put in, so you can wear the watch. You can now start sizing to be comfortable. And again, price-wise at $2,420, I don't think there's a lot that can beat this watch at that price point with these specs and with this build quality. If you know of anything that you think really does compete with this, let me know down in the comments. And the final point I'm going to make on this watch is it's available. And what I mean by that is we're finally over the stupid madness of Tudors being traded over retail, or at least it seems like it at the moment. Hopefully that continues. Sure, there's that initial burst of energy and all these people wanting to sell as soon as the watch comes out the first 2 or 3 days. However, this watch is available at retail. You can go into any retailer and they probably have the watch in or can get it for you within a week. They will have the options of the leather strap or the NATO or the bracelet. And I think this is a very important point, because we're finally getting away from this crazy market of flipping and retail and over retail on watches and brands that shouldn't be over retail. And the brands themselves would even agree with that. Tudor never wanted that to happen. And Tudor isn't Rolex. Tudor, if they have a huge demand for a watch, they will produce more of that said watch. They'll stop production of stuff that isn't being made or being sold as often, and they'll start producing more of a different watch. This is why the Black Bay 58 is so abundantly available and priced so well on the secondary market. This watch will follow suit. So if you are waiting for a deal, I don't blame you. You probably will be able to get a deal soon enough. So there you have it. That is my off-the-cuff ownership of this watch for a month. It is built incredibly well. It ticks all the boxes of a field watch, a go anywhere, do anything watch, and you really don't have to worry about it. The cons, I really don't think there are any. It comes down to design, and at the end of the day, the important point on that is design is subjective. If you don't like the design of this watch, don't buy the watch. It's not the watch for you. Whereas if you like the design of the watch and the only things holding you back are maybe concerns of build quality, concerns of movement, concerns of all these other factors, I would say don't let that stop you. Go in, try it on, see for yourself. It is built amazing. So thank you very much for watching the video. I really do appreciate it. If you have any questions about the watch, something more specific you want to know the answer to, ask it down in the comments. I'll reply to you and give you my honest opinion and answer. So we'll see you all again in the next video.